Toy Chat is not a children's channel. This video is intended for adult gift givers and collectors. Hey guys, welcome to Toy Chat. This is Max.
And Sang.
And this is another episode of Collector's Corner, where we discuss hot topics in the doll and toy industry centered on some of our favorite brands. So some time ago, we hosted a poll in the community tab of our channel where we asked you guys what you wanted us to discuss on our podcast. And the top voted one was involving basically managing storage space and, letting go of things as a collector. So we did some time ago already cover that. But that particular poll got a lot of votes and comments, and a lot of people were saying they really wanted us to cover multiple topics that were part of that poll. And the second place in that poll was imagining an Ever After High comeback. Could it happen? Of course, Ever After High being Mattel's once upon a time very popular doll line
focusing on fairy tales.
Yes, specifically the sons and daughters of fairy tale legends. So daughter of Snow White and Evil Queen and so on and so forth. So Ever After High debuted around 2013, which, back then, we caught on, I think, closer to 2014, 2015, something like that. As some of you OG followers may know, our channel was at one point very focused on Ever After High and Monster High. A really long time ago, we already had a whole video focused on kind of like a retrospective of Ever After High, things we liked, things we didn't, and kind of just discussing its history and legacy. This conversation specifically is going to be different. We're going to be focusing on if the brand were to have a comeback. What would that look like? What would we want it to look like? We're going to start the conversation with, do we even think that would be possible? Is it something that would realistically ever happen? But yeah, this is just something a lot of folks online, have been mentioning and asking us to discuss before. So we're going to get into it because, we love Ever After High. We have always loved Ever After High. Starting the conversation off with, do we think it's actually possible? Do we think in the world we live in now that Ever After High would come back? I think before we kind of get into that, it's very important to give kind of the background context. As many collectors know, Mattel notoriously lost the Disney Princess license in 2016. And at the time it was, it was very heavily, it was not pure speculation. It was all but verified. There was a statement that was circulating quite a bit online where the former Mattel chairman and CEO, Chris Sinclair, reportedly said the company got, quote, too competitive with them on Ever After High, as in too competitive with the Disney Princess brand. Obviously, at one point, the Disney Princess license was picked up by Hasbro. For a time, those dolls had kind of polarizing, reception, from collectors and stuff like that. And recently, just in the past few years, Mattel reacquired the Disney Princess license, which I'm sure was a massive deal for them. I mean, as a lot of people I'm sure have been noticing, Mattel, I feel like, is pouring a lot more focus and kind of effort and initiative into the Disney Princess license than they were before. Kind of looking back to the prior to the Ever After High's discontinuation, it almost to me felt like Mattel was kind of treating those Disney Princess dolls at the time as a bit of an afterthought.
Yes.
We didn't see a huge amount of them on shelves. They looked very closely aligned to just Barbies. They kind of just looked like Disney Princess Barbies. But obviously now, we have all this new stuff, and there's a heavy adult collector focus with the Mattel Creations releases. So with all of that information in mind, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree, tragically, I don't think an Ever After High comeback would happen. Maybe if Mattel loses the license again, but I feel like they're going to cling on to that license for dear life.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think realistically Ever After High would come back. Sadly, since, we really loved that brand, I think right now it's just so competitive in the doll space right now. I don't think there's a spot for Ever After High.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the focus that Mattel has right now is on Monster High and the Barbie brand. But I think if there was ever a reason to bring Ever After High back, I think they should go around the same route as they did with the Monster High reboot. I think a collection of, really high-end collector's dolls, and then maybe some Playline dolls to get newer collectors into it. But I think realistically, I don't know if it's realistically going to happen.
There were even some, this was more speculative, but there were, I know there was kind of a sector of belief of kind of that Disney Descendants may have been almost kind of like a clapback, like response to Ever After High, because of course Disney Descendants is also like, sons and daughters of fairy tale legends. And even though obviously, of course, fairy tales are in the public domain, anyone is able to use them, in however they'd like. Of course, intellectual property and stuff like that, of course, gets a little more specific when you're talking about like particular depictions of a character and appearances. And I definitely, Ever After High, I do think periodically borrowed from the Disney versions of Disney princesses, kind of like how Rosabella Beauty, her aesthetic does kind of feel like it borrowed loosely from Disney's Belle, because she wore a yellow skirt with roses. She had brunette hair. But it's obviously, though, it's hard, of course, because the Disney version of these fairy tale characters are so like omnipresent in like the pop culture zeitgeist. It's kind of like what people think of first when they think of fairy tales. So I think that would make an Ever After High comeback very tricky, especially now that, Mattel has the Disney Princess license again. Something I've seen multiple collectors say, I kind of feel this way too, is it might almost be better if Ever After High were to come back, if they treated it a little more like the recent Bratz comeback, where like they focus primarily on adult collector releases. Like they market it as something for folks who have the nostalgia of the original brand. Something Sang and I talk about a lot is a doll line that, especially when it initially comes out, when it kind of markets itself as something higher end and luxe and like very detailed, which Ever After High absolutely did when they first came out. And even when they first came out, they were like, at the time, this was years of inflation ago, when the deluxe lines like Legacy Day and stuff like that, they were $25. And at the time, those were like expensive dolls.
Yes,
those were like, oh yeah, this is like a pricey doll. But I mean, they were beautiful. They were so detailed. And I almost feel like if Ever After High were to come back, I feel like they really should focus on that, on bringing back that kind of luxe experience that Ever After High offered. And obviously, if we're talking about the competition, nowadays MGA is doing something kind of similar with Rainbow High, where it's like, as we've been calling it, quote unquote, elevated playline. And of course there's been conversations swirling around that too, like how can, as like Rainbow High kind of maintaining its status as a very luxurious, detailed doll brand, at price points that are definitely a bit higher than your average Playline doll. And of course that brand's going in, its own different directions too.
And that's why I think like collector dolls like Mattel Creations might be a good route if they were going to bring back Ever After High, because I think that's kind of like the sweet spot of where like collectors who've been following this, like the brand, would appreciate some of the luxe outfits. And articulation was a huge point in Ever After High. They were really articulated, and they have this aura of regalness to them that I think adult collectors enjoyed. It
was also, I would argue, one of Mattel's most successful lines, I would say, in terms of packaging as well. Like they really popped off the shelf. So I would, it had like that watercolor aesthetic, when they first came out. I think something that would really need to be kept in mind if Ever After High were to ever come back is there's a reason the reboot failed. And I think that would really need to be applied for anything potentially moving forward. It really feels like in the reboot initially, they kind of tried to Barbiefy Ever
Yeah, a
After
lot of
High.
smiling faces.
Yeah, a lot of, and making it a cheaper, more affordable brand and stuff like that. And I think there were, and obviously we have discussed, if you dig way deep in our channel, you will find we have already discussed at length our thoughts on a lot of that stuff. But that is almost why I feel like it would have a better shot at being successful in present day if they were to kind of prioritize that adult collector aesthetic. And I kind of do agree with saying I think the playline space, and even really playline shelves, like physically, are a little overcrowded right now to kind of like make playline space for Ever After High. But I mean, I think there's just so much that can be done. I mean, there's even like, there were popular characters from the series that never got dolls, like I don't remember their names, but the twins. Lily Bo Peep. She was she was a huge fan favorite, and she never got a doll.
No.
The twins, the son and daughter of Hansel and Gretel, they were really cute as well. They never got dolls, and I feel like those would sell phenomenally well on like Mattel Creations or something like that. And I mean, again, it's kind of like the vampire craze, like how, you know, like True Blood and Twilight, and like they all kind of benefited from each other. I think the fact that, because I mean, fairy tales, of course, they're kind of always going to be popular. You know, I think we're in an era right now where the Mattel Creations collector drops are really poppin'. So I feel like and I almost feel like that would be a way for them to kind of slip under the radar a little bit without like angering the Disney overlords, like on playline shelves and stuff like that. I think if they just do an adult collector release, again, I'd love to see the characters who never got dolls. I think that would be kind of a good, I mean, realistically speaking, they would probably want to bank on very popular characters. So like it might be some sort of like Lux, Apple White, or Raven Queen, or, you know, the brand has already done that with, you know, Apple and Raven. I mean, really multiple times with and obviously there's been, you know, amazing Comic-Con releases of, you know, Cerise and Cedarwood and stuff like that. That's kind of where my mind is at, is I feel like the greatest potential for success would be in adult collector releases.
You know, we are on their 10th anniversary right now. It came out in 2013, so this could be a good opportunity to bring back.
That's true.
But we'll see. I think the fact that Mattel Creations are doing Disney dolls right now might be a good sign that they won't be doing anything for Ever After High. But, you know, one can hope. Maybe some, you know, San Diego Comic-Con exclusive or something like that for the anniversary. But I think Ever After High holds a dear spot for collectors, especially those who are coming from like Monster High and like us. You know, it was the line that what we got into collecting with.
It was really kind of like the line that, you know, kickstarted our adult collector, you know, life with dolls. I think actually on the note of Monster High, you know, a long time ago, there was the teased Monster High and Ever After High crossover. You know, it was initially hyped up as this huge event, and, you know, it seemed like there was going to be a movie and crossover dolls and all of that. Of course, that never fully came to fruition, and the only crossover folks ultimately got was a book, like a novel. It would be really interesting if Ever After High were to ever come back, if they revisited that concept and kind of brought it in through Monster High. And, you know, because of course, originally Ever After High was, in a sense, a spin-off of Monster High. But that seems like something pretty unlikely at this point, especially because in Gen 3, the series has been completely, you know, rebooted. There's a new canon, so we couldn't directly revisit where those implications left off. But I still think that's something that would get fans really hyped and could potentially lead to something successful, because obviously people really wanted to see more of that crossover. It had a lot of potential. Yeah, I mean, I also just feel like too that, you know, they always say like strike when the iron's hot, or kind of, I think we're in an era right now where nostalgia is very in. So I think there are clearly a lot of, you know, nostalgic Monster High fans. I mean, actually from our observance, it really seems like the Monster High collector releases are consistently more successful than the Playline releases.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because obviously, I mean, we've seen a lot of Monster High Gen 3 Playline like sitting on shelves, and it makes us kind of question how successful some of that stuff is. But as everyone has witnessed, that, you know, the Mattel Creations collector stuff, it's been so many very rapid sellouts and demands for more. And obviously, you know, with the Barbie movie coming out, that, you know, created a lot of hype for collector dolls from Mattel as well. So I think we are kind of in a period where if they wanted to do kind of like a one-off, I mean, I might even be okay, to be honest, with like a one and done situation. If they want to do almost kind of like a farewell release, or just like a nostalgia release, or kind of similar to like the Polly Pocket Keepsake collection. Obviously they've done a couple of those, but something just like a little morsel, you know, for nostalgia collectors.
Like I said, to dip their toes back into it and see how what the fans, you know, reaction to it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some possibilities there. It would be very tricky, I think, to, it's just such, I again, it's a line I unfortunately don't think Mattel's going to cross. I mean, again, maybe if they lose the Disney Princess license and then they just like get bitter, they're like, well, we'll show you, we'll bring back Ever After High.
Well, I think if we're going that route, I think in terms of spite, there are rumors that MGA might be doing like a fairy tale line.
Yeah, what was it?
Storywood Fairy Tales. So that is an interesting change, you know.
Yeah,
change,
and like they've literally filed the patent or whatever for trademark. Yeah, they trademarked, and a lot of people were pointing out the fact that Scarlet Rose, one of the new dolls from Shadow High Series 3, is wearing a hoodie that says Storywood.
And she has like a journal and books.
Yes, she has a journal and books, which is funny because beyond that, she does not look fairy tale themes to me at all. But I digress. So if MGA is going to be releasing some type of fairy tale line,
and you know it's gonna be fire.
Yes, I mean, I'm very excited at the idea of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious if the folks who've been really holding out for like Ever After High to come back might kind of jump ship and become MGA people if they're not already. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious if that would provoke any kind of response from Mattel as well, because as we all know, Mattel and MGA love playing.
They don't get along.
They love clapping back at each other endlessly. So, you know, I mean, obviously, as we've discussed before, you know, competition is generally a good thing for consumers most of the time. So, I mean, depending on the direction MGA goes with that, maybe that'll incentivize Mattel to like potentially do something for Ever After High. But I'm not really sure. You know, again, I mean, so much of this feels so theoretical and abstract and like, you know, things that will just probably never happen. I'm very curious what kind of how other people feel out there. You know, are there things, you know, what would you like to see from an Ever After High comeback? Do you think it's possible? It seems like a lot of people don't think it's possible but at this point, but it does seem like there's a lot of people who would really like to see it come back, and, you know, to some capacity. But yeah, definitely let us know your thoughts, you know, on this subject. Are you holding out for an Ever After High comeback? Have you already totally, you know, given up on it? You know, curious how the community feels about this. Definitely let us know. And also let us know what you would like us to discuss in our next podcast. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.